before I get in, before it starts, before I begin? How long before you decide, before I know what it feels like? Where to, where do I go? If you never try, then you never know. How long do I have to climb up on the side of this mountain of mine? Chance that you get is a chance you seize. How long am I gonna stand with my head stuck under the sand? I'll stop before I can stop, before I see things the right way up. All that noise, all that sound, puzzling me. All that noise, all that sound, all those places that I've not found. Birds go flying at the speed of sound to show you how it all began. Birds go flying from the underground. You could see it, then you'd understand. When you see it, then you'll understand. All those signs, I knew what they meant. Some things you can't invent. Some get made, some get sent. The birds go flying at the speed of sound to show you how it all began. Birds come flying from the underground. You could see it, then you'd understand. When you see it, then you'll understand.
Good morning. Good to see you all here. This thing has come off 3 times today. I'm not sure. I'm sure it's me. Put it in my pocket here. Happy Mother's Day, everybody. Good to see you all here. I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. Good morning. It's so good to have you here with 11/11 celebration. If I forget, I don't want to forget, I'll mention it right now, but there are carnations in the back on the table back there, as well as information about next week and some other things. But if you didn't get a carnation coming in, then please take one with you. If you're a mother, if you're a daughter, if you're a son, if you're a son of a mother, if you know somebody who's a mother, if you are a Band does not need to go there. It's not where I was going. Anyway, if you have a neighbor and you'd love to pass a flower along, in other words, take a flower with you. You have no excuse not to take a flower with you if you don't have one in your possession now. So make sure you grab one and pass it along just for fun if you don't want to hang on to it yourself. It's good to have you here this morning. We're in the second week, or the second to last week of our series, Big Magic, living a life of creative faith and how we do that. And this morning we're thinking about trust, but I want you to turn your bulletins over so we can look at the last week of the series. I mentioned this. I've been mentioning this over the weeks. This idea of this is kind of an unrevival that I put together. We've never done a revival in 11:11. It's a little counterintuitive for us. So I'm not really doing a revival. I'm doing an unraveling. Thank you very much. Somebody gets it. Thank you very much. Yes, it's an unraveling. And this wonderful quote by some of you know these wonderful paintings and posters put out by the Story people. You've seen them. They sell them at gift shops. The frames are all painted. Then they have these beautiful line drawings with these fun little quotes. And one of them is a poem. The guy's name is Mike Lunig, and he's a great poet. And one of them is this poem, "Let it go, let it out, let it free, and it will be," let it go, let it out, let it all unravel. Thank you. Yeah. Let it be, let it free, and it will be the path on which you travel. All right, so we're going to have a little bit of an unraveling, which means we're going to participate in a lot of fun. And we're going to just let go of things and create and have some fun playing. Now, our speaker next week, Karen Blesson, is a Pulitzer Prize journalist and artist from Dallas. Phenomenal individual. Sharm Robarts introduced me to her recently. We had lunch with her about a week and a half ago. And she has such an amazing story and what she's doing in Dallas with art, what she's been doing all around the country over the years with art, and who she is and how she's come to where she is now. Such a great story. So I hope you'll be a part of that. And then the band's got some crazy fun music that we're going to be doing, including a Harry Connick piece that we might add here, where we talked about it briefly. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But the workshops afterwards are free. There's only some materials cost for a couple of them. Laura Canfield, many of you know, a great potter over in the Dallas area, used to be here with us. She's going to come do some pottery stuff if you're interested. We have Carolyn Steralt, who is an artist in the area, does nonprofit work over in the east side with creative writing and journaling. She's going to be with us. And we've got Chuck Chandler. Some of you all know him. He's a member here, but he's a fantastic videographer and photographer. And he's going to have some hands-on, quick and easy sort of tips for photography. And then one of our members in here, Linda Stoley, is also a muralist, a professional muralist. And she's going to have some fun with us doing community mural. So we're going to have lunch. We're going to have activities. It'll be about 3 hours worth of time. You get to flip-flop with these little mini workshops and take 2 out of 4. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you will be here. Hope you'll invite some friends to be here and also to hear Karen's story. Then on the 22nd, we're going to have Doxe is going to be performing. You've seen stuff about that, and she'll be in the sanctuary performing an annual tribute to her late husband, Alexi, and it's a benefit concert. If you've ever been to one of them, you know you want to be to all of them that she does. So you'll find more information about that, but it's online as well. We're excited. And one more thing before we move into opening with a prayer, and that is Lori Simmons here has been our pianist for 10 years today. And a beautiful poster that Doxe put together. And Doxe, of course, is here because of Lori, and Lori's here because of me, so Doxe's here because of me. And I grab whatever I can get. Let's all stand. Let's have a word of prayer. Let's pray. Holy One, we come into this space always with gratitude, the chance to be together, to be with one another, to be open to what's possible, to just simply be open to what we might learn and take from this place. For this we are grateful. We are mindful of the pains that we bring. We are mindful of pains that we know others bring. We're mindful of pains in the world. And yet in this place, in this opportunity, we have this chance to simply be open and to be present. And for that we give thanks. In the name of the one of whom we live and move and have all our being. Amen. So as you come forward, if you have an offering as we're singing, bring it forward. Also, if you registered your little attendance, bring that forward. And let's stand and sing this great song by Peter Mayer.
Here we go. Although below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Verse 2. Sun my sail and moon my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the urgent wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, breathe the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Fantastic! Hey, take a moment, offer one other sign of peace. would you please?
Fantastic. So we've been having a guest artist for this series as we've gone through. We've been using Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic, as sort of a guideline, and then drifting here and there around it. But we've tried to have a guest artist here each Sunday, and our guest artist this morning is Jakey Cabe, who's an actor in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Many of you all know him. Many of you have seen him in his work. A lot of kids know him from all of his voiceover work that he did with Nickelodeon and Dragon Ball Z. And but Linda and I, most recently, we saw him last year. We haven't seen him this year, and we couldn't get over the play he's doing in Addison. We saw him last year in Mass Appeal, and he did that over here at the Circle Theater. And it was phenomenal, and it got lots of great reviews and stuff, and many of you, hopefully, you got to see him in that. He's now doing the Big Meal over in Addison, which has also gotten great reviews and a pretty complex piece. He's been doing it for the last couple of months, or I guess at least 5 weeks. 4 or 5 weeks? Okay, yeah. And then like 3 or 4 days of showing, and all of that's just to say he's racing from here to go back and do the last couple of shows. They had also a show this afternoon. So we're glad to have him here this morning doing this, and grateful for him to kind of squeeze us in to, I mean, imagine he's already got these other scripts rolling around in his head, right? And so now he's going to share some other stuff with us. Let's welcome Jakey Cape.
Thank you. And what Tom is actually doing is explaining why I'm actually holding paper and I'm not memorized. But I would be if I could. First piece I'd like to do for you this morning in talking with Tom about sort of the theme for what's going on is from one of my favorite plays, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. It's one of the last lines of Hamlet. And Tom Stoppard, a British playwright or I think he's originally from South Africa, but he took 2 characters from the play Hamlet and puts them in sort of an absurdist situation where they're having to choose between free will and predestination. And throughout the play, they don't really know which one is which, who's Rosencrantz, who's Guildenstern, what they're doing here, why were they sent for, why does Hamlet keep giving them a hard time, and then eventually at the end of the play, why did they die? So one of the characters, Rosencrantz, is musing over one of life's greatest questions. Do you ever think of yourself as actually dead, lying in a box with a lid on it? Nor do I, really. It's silly to be depressed by it. I mean, one thinks of it like being alive in a box. One keeps forgetting to take into account the fact that one's dead, which should make all the difference in the world. Shouldn't it? I mean, you'd never know you were in a box, would you? It would be just like being asleep in a box. Not that I'd like to sleep in a box. Not without any air. For starters, you'd end up dead. Then where would you be? Apart from inside a box. And that's the part I don't like, really. And that's why I don't think about it. Because you'd be helpless, wouldn't you, stuffed in a box like that? I mean, you'd be in there forever. Even taking into account the fact that you're dead. Well, really, especially if you're dead. I mean, ask yourself, if I asked you, straight off, I asked you, I'm going to stuff you in a box. Would you prefer to be alive or dead? Naturally, you'd prefer alive. Life in a box is better than no life at all, I guess. Actually, you'd have a chance, at least. You could lie there thinking, well, at least I'm not dead. And in a minute, someone's going to bang on that lid and yell down to me and go, hey there, what's your name? Come out of there. Yeah, I wouldn't think about it if I were you. You'd only get depressed. Eternity is a terrible thought. I mean, where's it going to end? Whatever became of the moment when one first knew about death? There must have been a moment in childhood when it first occurred to you that you don't go on forever. I mean, it must have been shattering, stamped into one's memory. And yet I can't remember it. It never occurred to me at all. What does one make of that? We must be born with an intuition of mortality. Before we know the words for it, before we know there are words, out we come, bloodied and squalling with the knowledge that for all the compasses in the world, there's only one direction, and time is its only measure.
We invite you to join us on this next song, written by the wonderful Elizabeth Willis. silence and the noise. Peace is welcome, welcome. Love, fill my heart. Pull me close where I'm apart. Peace is welcoming, welcoming. And love be my guide, even as I close my eyes. Love, be here now, be here now. And love, sing my words so that everyone is heard. Love, be here now, be here now. And love is all around, all around.
We come now to our Kairos time, and so if you will, relax together. Maybe close your eyes and listen for the sound of the bowl. Its sound vibrates to and from the universe, just as the breath we take in and out, to and from the eternal. We breathe here together in quiet. Bound together in common humanity. Joined in our sorrow and in our joy. In our questions and in our searching for answers. Maybe we can trust that together we find more courage and more strength, more peace. We must mind our breath. It is shared breath. Shared breath. May we find peace.
A reading from the book of John. I am the true vine, and God is the gardener. Live in me, make your home in me, just as I do in you. In the same way that a branch can't bear grapes by itself, but only by being joined to the vine, you can't bear fruit unless you are joined with me. I am the vine, you are the branches. When you're joined with me and I with you, the relation intimate and organic, the harvest is sure to be abundant. Separated, you can't produce a thing. But if you make yourselves at home with me and my words are at home with you, you can be sure that whatever you ask will be listened to and acted upon. This is how God is revealed, when you produce grapes, when you mature as my followers. I loved you the way God has loved me. Make yourselves at home in my love. That's what I've done. Make yourself at home in God's love. I've told you these things for a purpose, that my joy might be your joy and your joy fully mature. This is my command. Love one another the way I loved you. This is the very best way to love. The word of the Lord.
I dare say if I said to everyone right now, think the name Steve Martin. Instant images come to your brain. A favorite movie, Saturday Night Live appearance, something else. But he's also an extremely talented banjo player. He's produced several albums recently with Edie Brickell of Edie Brickell and the New Bohemians, which I think is a Dallas band, weren't they? Yeah. And actually, the two of them have written a musical, I think, which is either coming to Broadway or on Broadway now. So anyway, he's also a very accomplished writer and playwright. And one of his first plays was called Picasso at the La Panagile, which was in the mid-'90s. I actually saw it on Broadway back in the mid-'90s. It's a very funny play. And got a couple pieces from this play today that hit on the theme that Tom was talking about. And this play takes place at a bar in Paris in 1904 called the La Panagile, which means nimble rabbit, like you do. And in this bar, at certain times, any number of people could be there, like people are at bars. So I've read. I don't know. I've reading Tom's blog and other things. I hear it happens. Yeah. Where's the rim shot, man? But I get a base rim shot. Awesome. David Letterman. But in this bar could be found Picasso, could be found Sagot, could be found a guy named Schmendemann who invented some sort of building material, or even could be found a young Albert Einstein. But also could be found just your normal people who are hanging around in bars, like an old man named Germain who is musing over what makes somebody creative. Well, you're a painter. You're always having to come up with ideas. What's it like? I mean, the only idea I ever came up with was when I had to paint my shutters. I had to figure out a color. And I thought about it for a long time. Should it be a light color? Should it be a dark color? For a while, forest blue seemed nice. Then I realized there's no such thing as forest blue. I tried to flip a coin, but I lost it on the roof. I started thinking, what are shutters anyway, and what would their natural color be? Then I realized shutters don't occur in nature, so they don't have a natural color. Suddenly I knew I was just moments away from a decision. Then this gorgeous thing walks by with ruby red lips and a derriere shaped like a valentine. I swiveled my head around and I snapped a tendon. I put the decision off for 3 days. Then I thought, maybe just take off the shutters. I started thinking about moving to a land where there are no shutters, and then, frankly, suicide. But then one day I said to myself, green. That was it. Now, that's it. It's green. And that's how inspiration comes to people sometimes. For me, I go to the bathroom. Got it. The bartender in this bar, the La Panagio, in 1904, was named Freddie. And Freddie has a thought. Hey, tell me if you get this joke. A man goes into a bakery and says, "Can you mail me a pie?" The baker says, "Yeah, I think we could." Then the man says, "Well, could you bake me a pie in the shape of the letter E?" And the baker says, "Yeah, I think we could do that. Come back tomorrow and we'll have it for you." So the man comes back the next day and the baker shows him the pie. The man says, "You idiot! That's a big E. I wanted a small E. A small E." So the baker says, "No problem. Come back tomorrow. I'll see what I can do." So the man comes back the next day. The baker shows him the pie. The man says, "Perfect. It's perfect." And then the baker says, "So, where do you want me to send it?" And the man says, "You know what? I think I'll eat it here." Guy told me that joke the other day. I didn't get it. Well, what Freddie has that we do not have in his bar is a young Albert Einstein. The reason the joke is funny is because of the perfect selection of the letter E. It couldn't be an A-shaped pie because A is functioning as both a noun and an article. Who needs it? It couldn't be a B-shaped pie because, well, the letter B there's a confusion with the letter B and the insect. Bzz. And C, not a C-shaped pie either because he would have never known if it was a capital C or a small c because uppercase and lowercase are the same pie. I'll come back to D. An F-shaped pie is just plain not funny. An H-shaped pie would be unstable. Two vertical bars supported by a weaker crossing structure. An I-shaped pie is not good because of the dot problem. Do you connect the pie to the dot, in which case it's not an I, or do you keep it separate, which raises the question, is it an I or is it a cupcake? A K-shaped pie has Kafka written all over it. That's for the thinkers in the audience. An M-shaped pie doesn't work because of the MW dilemma. M, to whom, and need I mention sigma. An O-shaped pie doesn't work because a pie is O-shaped. And a P-shaped pie doesn't work because the phrase P-shaped pie has this nasty calypso-rism. Now, of course, some of the others, they're obvious. They needn't be mentioned. Like Q, for example. Q? Well, Q is just an O with a comma through it. And a comma-shaped pie is simply a croissant.
So, I always wonder what visitors must think. I have to confess, when Jakey and I were brainstorming this, we were having a glass or two of wine after our Monday night discussion group. So this idea of pondering, of just thinking about things, of meeting strange people in strange places, of struggling with ultimate questions, death, which is also represented by the loss of love, the loss of job, the loss of sense of self, the existential realities that we face every moment. These average things, these moment-to-moment, everyday, normal things, songs like Coldplay, the birds fly from underground. But we would understand it at some point if we could just see it. The everyday explodes with invitation. The everyday explodes with sacredness. The thing I love so much about this text this morning that we heard, this text from John, is familiar. I am the vine, you are the branches. This notion in which we are interconnected with God, that we are interconnected through our connection with Christ. Now I'm going to step aside for a second and just say a quick word, because I'm going to do a series coming this summer. And whenever we talk about God or whenever we talk about Christ, our minds go in a couple of dozen different directions. And each one of those directions is so concrete it almost becomes frightening to think otherwise. Which is, of course, I'll take a side note, which is advertising. We have the jar of change. If you fear it, leave it here. So if you get scared for a moment, come up and bring some money in here. Leaving money for others always helps us get over our preoccupation, I think. But we get so concrete about what we think sometimes that I'm going to suggest it's idolatry. I just come right out and say, if we think too concretely about some things, we forget that there's so much more than we understand. So we'll have this whole series on what it is we talk about when we talk about God. For now, all I want you to do is to go with me. Just let go of anything else for the moment, any other preconceptions, any other hard-held sort of concepts in your brain. Let go of all of that for now, and just go with me with this idea that we are connected to God, that we are inextricably, undeniably connected to the mystery of all being. As Paul said, at the one in whom we move and live and have our being. We are interconnected like a vine. But then how does that vine bear fruit? Do you remember the second part of that verse? And this is where trust comes in. It bears fruit through love. When we not just love one another, because that's where we go. It doesn't say that. It just says love. As God is love. As God loves me, the text says, so I love you, and so must you love. That's what it says. One of the interesting things that Elizabeth Gilbert says in her book on this section on trust is she says, trust is one of these things that we sort of wait for life to like us. We wait for inspiration to like us. If you ask writers and you say, what do you love? Do you love writing? Writers will say, well, yeah, that's why I'm a writer. Painters will say, well, yeah, that's why I'm a painter. Clay potters will say, that's why I do what I do. If you love your work as an engineer, yeah, because I love that. Then she said, when I asked the question, does it love you? The response is twofold. The response is either, that's a crazy kind of question, or no, we have a love-hate relationship, which many of you probably can recognize in your own work at times, and if you have an artistic side to you, you probably recognize that. We often think of it as sort of the martyr side of our personalities. We do what we feel like we do because there's nothing else we can do. We feel called to this. We live within this reality of sort of angst with it. What she suggests is that's that false conception. That's that understanding that we're separate from stuff. When we recognize that we're connected, trust becomes something else. Trust becomes participation. But how do you get past that anxiety? How do you get past that doubt? How do you get past that sense in which I don't think it loves me? I can tell you my whole life doesn't love me. Just look at my childhood. Just look at my previous relationship. Just look at the way people treat me at work. I can tell you life doesn't love me. I'm going to stand fast. I'm going to stand strong. No, life loves you. We are interconnected with God in the midst of all reality. We are interconnected with the mystery of life. So how do we trust it? That's when I kind of looked up the word, and I meant to tell Mike here to give me only 8 minutes here, so you can give me 7 minutes from now. Yeah, and just start playing. If I keep going, just play something and stop me. I want to make sure we have time for the last song and for Jakey. But here's this thought about trust then. What does it mean? You look up the word trust and you look up the root of it, and we think of trust as being something we can count on. Well, if that's the reality, then we're in a hard place, right? Can you count on everything going the way you expect it to go? Can you count on your job colleagues being the way you need them to be? Can you count on them not backbiting? Can you count on them not gossiping all the time? Can you count on your relationship being exactly what you want that relationship to be? Your partner's going to be exactly the way you expect that? If trust means I need to be able to count on, then we're going to continue to live in this dualistic reality, this tension, this inability to really experience what it means to be a part of the vine, and the vine a part of us. So I got to playing around with this idea of what is trust. And she has this word that she used where she says you can be a martyr, which is where most of us spend our time, or you can be a trickster. And some of you identify with that right off the bat. But that trickster has a different orientation to trust. A trickster messes with life, messes with their reality because they know whatever they do, something happens. Do they know what's going to happen? Of course not. Do you remember watching Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner? Loved that show. Now, we know that he's always going to get it in the end because that's why we like Weichen. That's that, what do we call that German word, Schadenfreude, that idea that we get to see someone else suffer. It feels kind of good sometimes. We do. We kind of like that sometimes. Not much of it. But we like seeing Wile E. Coyote kind of get it in the end. But here's the thing. No matter what he does, he can't predict how it's going to come out in the end, but he still does it. The trickster participates because of one thing, because intimately they're connected with life, and they know that that's their role, is to play. Now that got me curious when she said trickster. And I went back and looked up the root word of trust. And the root word of trust is to have courage. It's the same root word as courage. So I went and I traced that down. I looked at the root word of courage. And the same root word of courage means to take heart. To take heart. So then I played around with that, and I started looking at some of the root words of that, and I found out that that word has the same root word as to love. All these words share the same roots. Until I came up with this last one that suddenly occurred to me. I know this. I understand this one. And that was to delight. To delight in. What would life be? How could we get to that place where we delight in life? I remember it. I was 4. I remember it when I was 5, and my mom said, you get to go to kindergarten. And it was the first time, and I was ecstatic about that because she gave me this whole thing. Kindergarten is like Disney World. I mean, there's games, there's fun, there's great food, and we're going to make a special lunch, and we're going to get dressed up for it, and you're going to play outside, and it's wonderful. And it was all those things, and I met new people, and then I got to do it another day. And I did it 5 days that week, and then after Sunday, I was kind of tired, and I remember saying to my mom, she came in and she woke me up, Tommy, time for school, what are you doing? And I said, I'm not going today. And she said, what do you mean you're not going today? Of course. I said, no, it was fun. I don't want to go today. She said, no, I don't think I explained it to you. Kindergartner, you go all the time. And I said, what? She said, no, you go every day. And I had this stunned look on my face, like this didn't make sense. Even Disney World wouldn't be fun every day. And I looked at her and I said, every day. She said, yeah, you go every day. I said, for how long? She got this serious look and said, 18 years. Maybe longer if you want a decent job. And it suddenly occurred to me I had been completely manipulated. Of course, that's how I look back on it, And then it was just this disappointment that I had to get up now, and now I had to put on clothes, and now I have to go to school. But there's this thing about life early on when we're young that we recognize. Robert Fulghum wrote it in his book, Everything I Needed to Learn, I Learned in Kindergarten. Do you remember that book? Came out in the 90s. I picked it up again and started reading it. What a great book. It's just all those lessons. Play, delight in, and make sure everybody's included. To me, that sounds a lot like the gospel. To delight in. Now, I don't know how you do that when you're dealing with depression necessarily. I don't know how you do that when you're dealing with grumpy colleagues at work. I don't know how you deal with that when you're feeling like there's somebody cutting you off on the highway. But I think it's an attitude that she calls in Big Magic, Elizabeth Gilbert calls it as stubborn gladness, and I want to call it trickster. That when we recognize we're part of the ivy, we're part of the vine, we just participate anyway. We find ways to delight in. We find ways to cultivate the curiosity. We find ways to ask, I wonder. Einstein said, A to B logic is the easiest way to get from A to B. But he said imagination will get you everywhere. Break out of the concrete. Break out of the I understand and I know what it is, exactly what I think and believe. I know exactly who those people are and why they're acting that way. I know exactly what they did when they cut me off. I know exactly why I feel depressed and what happened to me as a kid. Break out of all of that and decide, instead, I think I'm going to be curious. I think I'm going to explore. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to see what I can imagine. Amen.
There's a street in a river town, and on that street is Mary's house. By the house is a deep ravine, running there is a magic stream. Laughing over the sand and rocks, it runs the length of Mary's block. Another mile to the riverside, and 1,000 more to the ocean wide. Now down in that ravine one day, by the water Mary lay, put her hand in the shallow stream, and Mary had a magic dream. She imagined that inside her stirred all the waters of the earth, every puddle and every creek, every one of the 7 seas. But she could feel the fishes roam in her fingers and her toes, and in her chest the Gulf Stream flowed. Now ever since her dream that day, people say that Mary's changed. They sympathize when they suppose it must be strange to be the ocean. She senses when the salmon swim, hurricanes lick her skin, Asia tickles her left arm, and the moon above tugs at her heart. Her front is day, her back is night. She recollects the dawn of light. Tidal waves run up her spine, lightning tinkles when it strikes. And she could feel the fishes roll in her fingers and her toes, and in her chest the Gulf Stream flowed. And all this happened, so it seems, because of Mary's magic dream. Some will say that lakes and wells, even rain can cast a spell. Every water drop you ask, tale's a tale of oceans vast. Careful when you take a drink, there's magic in the kitchen sink.
My name is Picasso, and I would give it all up if I could just write songs about love. I could dream it forever and still not do it, but when the time comes for it to be done, God, I want to be ready for it. To be ready for the moment of convergence between the thing done and the doing of it, between the thing to be made and its maker. And that moment I'm speaking for everyone. I am dreaming for the billions yet to come. I am taking the part of us that cannot be understood by God and letting it bleed from the wrist onto the canvas. And it can only be made because I have felt these things, my lust, my greed, my hatred, my happiness. So this is what it's like to be there at the moment. The moment I leave blue behind. I'd like some wine.
Jakey Cave, everybody. Thank you, Jakey. I'm not sure he'll be able to stick around if he can, and he'll visit for a moment, but he has to get to his play happening in just a bit. Let's stand together. I invite you to come back next week to hear Karen Blesson share her story and where she is now with the monumental art stuff she's doing in Dallas and working with kids and other groups. And I invite you to stick around for those workshops afterwards to get your own hands involved in some creative play. So I hope you can be a part of that. The music we're going to have next week is going to be a lot of fun too. Let's take one another's hands as we close. Let's pray. Holy One, bless us as we move from this place. May our passions become curiosity. May we simply look for clues in all the moments we experience. May we simply see opportunities for delight, for curiosity, for I wonder where this goes. And in doing so, may we open ourselves up to the vines that connect us all, to this life and beauty that connects us all. Bless us as we go from this place. Amen. Thanks.
Sing with us. Here it is. Let the river run, let all the dreamers wake the nation. Come, the new Jerusalem. We, the great and small, stand out a star and blaze a trail of desire through the darkening dawn.